Hello, everyone. It's Jeff Gayduk from Destination Film Guide, and I'm happy to have with me today KJ Jennings, CFC, President of the Association of Film Commissioners International. KJ, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir. Well, I appreciate you joining me, and I'm looking forward to a conversation today, really to get a handle on your new role, because I know you're the new kid at the block at AFCI. Can you tell our audience a little about your background and what brought you into your role at the organization?
Sure. I became a film commissioner in a regional office in the South Island of New Zealand. It was about 15 years ago. And it was a startup film commission. And it was like many film commissions at startup, it was an area that had a lot of production, and the local government kind of said, well, how can we enable this to grow bigger? And we realized there's things called film commissions. And that's, so in essence, we're kind of economic development for film. So I had the first year I'd found out about the AFCI. So I joined the AFCI, and they have an annual event called Cineposium. Or we have an annual event called Cineposium. So I went to this thing, and it was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I went there, and all of a sudden I was with my people. And I was like, we're a very unique user group, and that there's only about 300 of us in the world. And most of the main ones belong to the AFCI. And so all of a sudden there was somebody I could talk to that knew what I was talking about. And it's a very, there's a very communal vibe to it. And on the surface of it, we're competition, but the reality is this is how we're living our lives, you know, this is our jobs. So it's much easier to just kind of go, oh, I had this happen. And I was just amazed, you know, you might have to slightly change one variable, but anything that I was going through, somebody had already been through it. So that was my introduction to the AFCI. And that really became probably one of the biggest, most positive influences on my career. And from then on, it was a place, just a resource for me to go. And any time of year, I could just call or email somebody I'd met from there and say, look, I'm going through this, and how would you deal with it, you know? So
your background is in the film commission business. From the role in the film commission to AFCI, and now you're working with the organization and helping other film commissions. How did that transition happen?
I'd probably been a member for about 6 or 7 years, and then one of the older film commissions, and I was always into it. I was active when I was there, and I was involved. And they suggested I run for the board, so I ran for the board, and I was elected to the board. And then I was on the board for probably 3 or 4 years, and kind of just felt more and more attached to this thing, and knew the value that it had in my life, and thought, well, it's, kind of time to give back a little bit, but also can we make it better, because I sort of knew the things that I would like as a member that maybe I wasn't getting, and how could we make that happen? So it was in 2015 I became chairman, and then during that time we were based previously in Wyoming. And so we were an industry organization, a film industry organization, but we weren't really delivering that connection between our members and the industry. And so moving to LA enabled that. And so now we're set up in LA, and our industry connections are the best they've ever been. So
good.
What the upside of that is now the flow and exchange between our members and them is really happening now.
Good. Okay. So I wanted to try and ask you a few questions today about sort of the return to film business. And I guess that starts with what's happening right now. Obviously, COVID's been devastating to a lot of industries, including the film market. What would you say is the state of your member film commissions right now? How are they dealing with this?
Varied, widely varied, right? So it ranges anywhere from, if you're in an area that maybe has done well in managing COVID currently, and you've got a good incentive program, things are good, you're probably booming, albeit you're booming in a new world. So there's all sorts of new challenges. But you know, I can say in New Zealand we've had a pretty good run with COVID, and we've got some massive productions up. So you know, we would be an example of a boom at the moment, and then there's other areas that are, you know, fully locked down, and they're locked down. So from a commission perspective, they're just really now trying to figure out how they manage this new world, and nobody knows what's going to happen. You know, that's what I figured out in this whole thing. What everybody thought would happen, even the smartest people I know, it went the opposite. So it's film commissioners are inherently really good at thinking on their feet and dealing with issues, and you know, we're problem solvers, so we're perfectly suited for this. But this is the biggest curveball anybody's ever seen, and I'm hearing the same from the industry. You know, that we have a really good advisory board at the moment. I've been speaking to them, and for them, it's the biggest issues they've ever dealt with. And almost all of their work now is not managing a production; it's managing a production in COVID, and all the things that you would have just said, let's get him on a plane and get him there tomorrow. You know, that doesn't exist anymore. So so I think everybody's working way harder, trying to achieve the same result they were getting before.
Interesting. So I would agree with you from the producer standpoint. And back in June, I spoke with two producers who had just finished wrapping up what they believe to be in the States the first COVID production, and just what they had to go through in order to try to keep everybody safe, and forming bubbles of different pockets of the crew so that they weren't intermingling. The fact that they could actually even shoot a film with all these restrictions and regulations, to me, was amazing, but they got it done. So kudos to them for sure. So, you know, in kind of looking out and forecasting maybe into 2021, 2022, do you see, or are you hearing of sort of a gradual return, or will this literally be a dam break where all of a sudden everybody's back up and running around, traveling around the world, or is it going to be more local opportunities? What sort of feel do you and your members have as far as the return to what I would say more full scale production?
I'll preface this again with nobody knows, but what's happened is there's a massive backlog of production that needs producing, right? The demand for content is increased, production's done. So there's that imbalance. So from an industry perspective, they are good to go, right? The limiting factors are going to be, is the environment there for us to do this in? So it's, there's certain, I know some regions and some areas, the governments are actually putting more money into the commissions or their film programs because they know this can kickstart an economy. They know, you know, we have the capability that if you get $100 million project in, all of a sudden there's $100 million in your state or country that wasn't there last week. And that's, you know, that trickled down into the communities. So a lot of the governments around the world are doing that and seeing that. Some of the governments who are, we're generally publicly funded from city, county, state, country, and some of them are having massive cutbacks. So we know some of our members are wondering if they're going to be around next year. And, you know, they might be viewed as a nice to have rather than this is a tool for us to get our economy going. So the AFCI is going to try and help with that, some of that messaging, to give our members the toolkit to have those conversations with their funders of, this is the time now more than ever to back us, you know, because we can get you going. There is absolutely a bigger demand right now than I think ever. I think this right now is a bigger demand for production than any other time.
Yeah, I would say so. Just looking at the different streaming services and like you alluded to, the fact that not a lot is being put in the pipeline right now, there's going to be a run back into the market in one way or the other. Now, along those lines, what role can film commissions play and helping productions ramp up quickly, because I think that when we feel better and the safety precautions are in effect and vaccines are effective and therapeutics are better, obviously there's going to be a collective sign, okay, now let's try to get back to business. Where do film commissions come into play?
Well, our AFCI member film commissions there's a certain set of standards they have to hold and be. And so the industry now knows that if they're one of our members, they can trust what they're saying. And so what we're hearing from the industry is what they want is up-to-date information on where this sits with COVID. So we've created a COVID-19 production alert. So our members each week can send in and go, right, here's what's happening this week. Here's what's happening this week. So the industry, at a touch of a button on one tab, they can go to our place and they can go, okay, Australia, what's happening in those? There's 5 different, in one of the different states that. And so we are now just in the process, or I'm in the process of trying to energize the membership to go, you need to do this every Monday morning, and it's one of those things that, it's one of those things. But what the industry is saying is, even if there's no change, if they can just say it's the same as last week. Okay. Because for instance, we had a member there was one, and they put the beaches are closed for shooting, but that was 3 months ago. So that doesn't mean, up to the date, honest information. And the thing with our members know that you have to be straight with the industry, because if you're one time you're not, they'll never deal with you again. So we won't vet that information. We'll just say, you put up, here's what's going on. And really, I mean, it's strange, but it's all about COVID right now. And the other opportunity I think it creates for our members is that perhaps you might not have had an incentive or a competitive incentive program in the past, and that was a key decision driver of where productions would go. But now, if they can go and actually shoot there, that is the priority. That's number one. So it's going to provide opportunities for other areas that may not have gotten a look in before. So that's really exciting. It's really, get that intel up. One of the things we're hearing from the industry is the speed at which they can test a crew. They're doing this testing, but if they go to an area and they have to wait 5 days because the testing system is overloaded. And so this was a conversation I just had yesterday. And so I'm just trying to think about, is there a way we can get, help our commission members figure out ways to get a testing procedure and done that focuses on that production. And so, the film commissioners around the world have relationships, the localized ones, well, everywhere, but they have, if you go to a region where they have relationships with, police, fire, everybody, the librarian, any weird place you might want to shoot or help you might need. So now it's have a relationship with your medical community and find out what's available, what the lab system is. Are they capable of ramping up if you bring in a production? Because the production will pay for it, but a lot of places mightn't have the capacity. So it's kind of like, it's almost like we're the new, it used to be our incentive is 20%. It might be our COVID capability is ding, 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 ding. And I think certainly for the next at least year, probably 2 years, that will be what drives it. And who knows if it's a year, 2 years, or 5 years, but it's a thing now. And I don't think, it won't go away for the foreseeable future.
It's a really interesting point, because I think a lot of people look at the incentives from inside the film business as the barrier to, who's either in the business and serious or who's not in the business. And as you and I have talked before, you can make Nebraska look like Oklahoma and Oklahoma look like Nebraska. You can make New York look like London and London look like New York. But does this effectively, especially from the destination side and knowing how lucrative and what an economic impact that films can have on an area with the spending and with perhaps the notoriety, does this open up the industry to some people that maybe have not been involved in the film commission business before?
Possibly, yeah. So it's I think local, national, state governments around the world are now looking at the economy and going, okay, where's this going? Things are not solid. What are our opportunities for recovery? And the film industry has the opportunity. One of our politicians a few years ago said we view it like a gusher. All of a sudden, there's nothing there, and then there's 150 million brought in the country. We like that, and so that might be on a national level, but it might be you might be a small county or a town or a city somewhere, and you've had sporadic filming in the past, and it might be, well, look, how do we get more of this? And I think it totally provides opportunities, and we're with the AFCI, we've always had this sort of a quadrant of our membership, which is you either have an incentive or you don't, right? And then you're either a state, national, office, or you're a regional office. So the state national usually helps to get the incentive and manages it and sort of sells it offshore. And the regional offices are where the rubber hits the road, right? So you come into that place and we've got to close the main street tomorrow. Okay, we can figure that out, sort of thing. So what COVID's allowing us to do at the AFCI, because it's not going to be in-person things, we can now specify who's getting what. And we go, right, you're a regional office without a commission. We know this is what you're interested in. So we're going to sort of customize what we're doing, how we're delivering. And then some things are important to everybody. The other thing we're trying to do is that one of the strongest positives of the AFCI is the community, and it's kind of our mental health. We go and we can talk to our people. So we're also looking at other ways now on this new online thing. It provides opportunities because some of the smaller commission members wouldn't have had the budget to go to LA. If you're a small New Zealand regional film office, you mightn't have that. So they weren't able to experience that. So now we're going to figure out ways to bring that to them. And so we've got membership meetings coming up, which we do via Zoom. And I'm doing it in 2 times so we can get one half the world and the other half, so we've got people everywhere. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, certainly, and Zoom is free. You don't have to buy an airline ticket and spend a week away from your family. I don't know that it's permanent, but it certainly is a really good stopgap. So that's a super smart move. So your roster of film commissions is really the who's who as far as who's serious about the film production business. If there were somebody new on the scene, or again, that we're looking at film as maybe a new avenue of driving economic opportunity in their area, do you folks as an organization have tools that can bring somebody into the business, or where would they turn if they were, like, okay, all of a sudden this is a priority because everything's been thrown up in the air at this point and we're reshuffling decks as we speak?
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of a turnkey operation for that. We're a one-stop shop. The organization is really based on education. So we have, and it's online now, education platforms, it starts with film commission fundamentals, advanced film commission. So it's the, I use this word too often. It's the idiot's guide for how to do it. So the first 2 courses, right? These are the basics. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is the difference between a film commission and a production company. And that's one of the keys, is that you don't pay us. Our services are free because we're funded by government. So therefore, we don't have any vested interests. And therefore, we're trusted by the industry because we don't clip the ticket. So we're entirely set up for, if anybody had an interest, we're their window to the world, sort of thing. Nice. Yeah.
Okay, and that's off the website, you say, correct?
Yeah, and we've got a membership manager, and so if you're interested at all, there's interested in joining, and that starts a process, and it's you have to do a few courses, and you have to be identified by your local, whatever area you say you want to be. You need a letter from that government saying, yes, they are authorized by us to represent us for film, which is crucial because, you could call yourself a film commission if you wanted. And and that's what, being an AFCI member, the industry tells us they know that's something they look for. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I think that would be certainly something that'd be popular coming out of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to pull your crystal ball out on this one. You know, anything that's this much of a structural damage to major industries, travel being one, certainly film entertainment being another. You know, there's going to be something that comes out of this. Is there a silver lining that you see? Is there an opportunity that may be surfacing now or will be in the future that will make the business stronger or better going forward?
Well, I think one good thing is reduction of traffic. You know, just in general, what everybody's realizing is you can work from home maybe 3 days a week or 2 days a week and be as efficient, if not more. You know, conventional wisdom was if everybody works at home, they're going to be watching reruns of MASH and, you know, not doing their job. But the feedback I'm getting is people are really focused. They're more focused when they're doing it. They're more energized. And so I think I don't think some of the big players I've been talking to the studios, they're going, we're going to now go into the office when we need to. And, you know, some of the big places, they've been working from home since the start, and they're not planning on going until mid next year to the office. And so it's totally changed the dynamic of how people work. And I think, you know, I was speaking to one of them, and they were saying, you know, I used to do phone calls all the time, and I'd be talking to people all over the world. But because of this, now we Skype or we Zoom and we now are seeing each other. And so it's weird. It's sort of separating people, but it's also in a weird way bringing people together. I think, you know, we're asking ourselves this question because we have 2 large in-person events every year. The AFCI does. And, you know, is there going to be an appetite for that? And we think for sure there will be the appetite to be with people again. But is there an appetite to travel to do that? And, you know, we don't know. I'd say we will plan on doing when things loosen up, we will do something and we'll find out. But we do, I think we do one called the AFCI week, which is in LA, which is a week. And that turned out it's a newer event that replaced the old locations trade show model. And the locations trade show was great in its day, but once incentives came in and the internet, that superseded the need for locations. You know, it was, and then I think now COVID's kind of the new incentive, and how you can operate in the COVID world is going to dictate how much production you get. And for the production, it's like, where can we go do our business? And whereas the incentives would have been a real key driver before, it'll still be a key driver. But if they've got 30%, but they're closed, and these guys have got 15%, but they're open, we've got a backlog of productions that need to get done, you know, because the backlog is the way the machine goes, you know, they're forward looking, you know, the industry, and they've got projects in the pipeline for years and years and years. So the things that would normally have started shooting today are now pushed back because they had a stall for the last 6 months. So it's this incredible backlog, and viewership, because people were locked down, has gone through the roof. So the demand is there and the production is gagging. So I think really that's the interesting sort of new opportunity, is how to roll in the COVID world or post COVID. Yeah.
Interesting. It'll be very enlightening to see in your reference to, you know, business and meetings travel. As somebody who virtually traveled for a living beforehand, I can tell you the one time I've stepped on an airplane during COVID was not a welcome return to travel, and not only the restrictions, but you know, I think as a society we've had a really messed up work-life balance. And, this has really helped people focus back on what's most important, hopefully. And that's not always being on an airplane. So it's not just me and you saying this, we've been following this trend. Some very smart people are saying permanent altering of business travel, meetings, not so much anymore. It's not like that we're not going to want to get together before, but, those road warriors that were seemingly, every week on the road, there's a different way to do business these days. And the industry, as it recovers, will determine ultimately how quick, or if that comes back at all. But from what you guys do from a production standpoint, you've got to be there in a lot of that. You need the cast and you need the crew and you need to do that. So I could see this being even more important for destinations that have hotels and have Airbnbs and are looking to fill local economic gaps in revenue streams that they've lost and may not be quick to recover. So in my mind, it is a bright future for the industry, and just as a matter of trying to get through this the best we can and get back to a safe production environment.
Yeah. What I probably could have mentioned one other thing that is, I think, an opportunity, but where both those worlds meet with travel and the traditional tourism market, is quarantine facilities. So I think, making upmarket quarantine facilities that you could actually just say, I'm on a great holiday because I'm in this place and I don't have to go anywhere, as opposed to being in a hotel that feels like, the concentration camp, and I think so, and that again is probably a role that film commissions will go, is if there's a quarantine, how do we make it as crew and star friendly as possible? And it's a whole other new thing. But I was thinking about that when it first came out, because the area I live is absolutely based on tourism, the economy. I'm in Queenstown in New Zealand. And so we were just absolutely thriving, going from strength to strength tourism market here, which the tap got turned off, like that. So I think there's those sort of things, who are the new types of travelers and what are they doing? And, do crews become their own bubbles, and they travel in mass, or it might be that you've got a resident bubble that's there, that's good to go. And so that will be better for local industries where a big production might like to bring in X amount of people and they would supplant it by some locals. It might be now is, hey, we're bringing our heads of department and use what's there. And so that gives an opportunity for the locals to show how capable they are, because it's hard to get a crack in the industry. So there's all sorts of opportunities like that.
One question off script here, and I bring this up because of the parallel conversation we're having about travel overall. If the meetings industry is facing a long slog back, and the film productions are going to need space in which to be able to shoot, do convention centers make production studios on a temporary basis? Are there some similarities in the settings of them that maybe they can, hate to use the word quarantine, but kind of take a portion of that convention center and say, this is gonna allow us to be able to film for 6 weeks straight here and, set up a set and production, whatever we need?
Why not? Yeah. I mean, we think on our feet, and, the industry is needs based. So, and they need it when they need it, which is generally now. And so, yeah, that would be a great use of a big building that's there and capable. Yeah, for sure. I think there's all sorts of things like that. And it's, I was really surprised. I went to the most remote of remote towns in New Zealand the other day. We were going to friends. We wanted to buy him a little joke sign, those little signs with a funny statement on it. And I asked the lady, how's it going, with COVID? She goes, I've had my best year so far. And it was a shop I would have bet you $100 coming out of lockdown that it would go under. I just thought that can't survive. So yeah, it's just weird, the opportunities it's creating that you didn't see coming. And, as a race, we're resilient and we figure things out. So that's not going to stop. It just changed.
True. Very, very good point. So last question for you, putting your film commissioner hat on, I wanted to ask you, you've obviously been in the business for a decade and a half at least. What's the weirdest request that you ever had from a production company?
The weirdest request.
And were you able to fulfill it, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about our membership, the film commissions, is 24/7, somewhere in the world, a film commissioner is pulling off a miracle, right? But we're also bound by confidentiality, and we're trusted from the industry, so we don't talk about anything. So my answer is yes, I've done some things that I was proud of being able to pull off, and some extremely weird things. But I'll probably just leave that aside.
Suffice to say, it happens, but we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it. Yeah. So, and it's and that's where we're a trust. That's why we're a trusted ally with the industry, which is why. And then we're trusted by our local governments and community. And essentially, we are the film commission is the interface between the film industry, the local government, and the local community. And so, our goal is that to get them to come in, to have them the production play by the rules while they're here, and the community happy and go, that was awesome. We want another one of those, because that means the next time the other one comes in with a crazy request, we can manage it. And so that's really what we do on the ground when they're here, is we try to, and it's a production will be fairly self-focused and not think about the one after them. And that's where the commissioner comes. And what people don't realize is we often push back against the industry. We'll say, no, you can't do that then, there. You can do that then there, or you can do that there, but not then, come in on a Sunday morning maybe, but not a Friday afternoon. So that's one of the key roles we do. And we take a long-term view of the game. And it's not just about this production, it's about what's coming down the line.
Fair enough. Well, KJ, really appreciate your time today, and welcome to your somewhat new role within the organization. Look forward to following your progress as we come through this and reconnecting at a time when the industry is in a little bit better mood. But certainly resiliency is the core part of what a lot of you guys have been going through, and I applaud you on that.
Right. Awesome. Thanks very much, Jeff. Have a great day.